Hello.
Hey, Dirk. And hey, Brandon.
Hello.
Three minutes more and we can start.
Works for me.
Yeah, I figured when I was going through there, it was just easier just to submit the changes instead of putting comments on everything.
Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for that. It will speed up for sure the pull request merge. Because I understand after that, okay, maybe we can just start because I don't expect more people to join. So starting with proposal E, I hope you can see my screen right now. Basically, this is the same situation as before. We need one more approver. I see Dirk approved already. So I told Joel as well, take a look into this, but maybe he forgot. I will ping him later as well to do it tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm not actually I don't know, approver.
Yes, you are not on the code owner, I guess. Yeah, that's the problem. But I think this proposal is good enough as it is. I don't have more comments. Nobody looks like nobody has. It's just a matter of approving it and merging. That's how it looks like. And for proposal H, as Brandon already mentioned, there are suggested changes. So I understand after this is solved, you will be okay to approve this pull request, right?
Yep, I would be okay to approve it with all the changes in there. But in
Yeah.
case there are any comments on any of those, feel free to throw them my way. We'll sort this out.
Yeah. And then comments from Vanessa, I don't consider them as a blocking PR. So we have basically three comments that I address in there. There was a discussion about kernel, I mean the field type of value itself, that is a string, list of strings that was misunderstanding. Vanessa thought this is a list. This is basically the way how to express kernel range, and the discussion has been ongoing in here. But I don't think this is something that blocks the PR because, yeah, it's just something very small, minor thing. And then we have this, the score of the compatibility. I would leave it as it is. If Joe wants to introduce this in his PR, that's fine. That we can discuss in the final design if that makes sense or not.
The score might be playing off of a little bit what I put in proposal A, which was that each of the matching annotations could have a score on the client side. this is just putting in the spec itself or in the compatibility artifact. It gives you a way, if you've got multiple matches, to be able to rank them on top of each other instead of trying to put them in a specific order.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. But I think in detail we will discuss that once we talk about the labels itself. Oh, sorry, of the artifact design itself. Because once we merge proposal H, I think we can move on with this final proposal for the artifact. Okay, so in that case, we are just waiting for Joe to pick up those changes or not. Let's see what he thinks, but I don't think he will block those or something.
Is there anything in there that I wrote that gets other people's attention? I mean, one was typos, so I'm assuming that's an easy one. But the rest of them, I kind of made some deep cuts in there. I want to make sure that I'm not conflicting with ideas from other people in this group.
Deprecation path, I agree that we could remove that. And then with the platform compatibilities, so let me read that again because I like that and I read that before, but let me pick up the topic again. Yeah. So this looks okay for me as well. Basically, all the changes you made there are fine with me regarding this proposal.
And it's a lot to read, so I understand that people need some time to go through it all.
Yeah. So please take a look into that offline, and if you have any comments to that, just comment in the PR directly. That brings me to the second topic, container platforms matcher for improved image selection. Because I was prototyping some stuff in containerd, how we could improve this image selection stuff. And basically we have two ways right now. The first one, which is taking the compatibility fields and platform features fields directly from the index. And containerd today has a nice thing of extending platform matchers in a very easy way. This is a fork from containerd platforms. And as you can see, basically you can implement your own matchers and bring your own clients. So even if there is a requirement for doing image selection over artifacts, people are still free to implement their own clients or basically extend CTR client in containerd. That would bring some discussion in the containerd community. But yeah, basically there is quite a lot of flexibility when it comes to image selections influence. But when it comes to basically reading platform compatibilities or platform features and making this as an important step for deciding about the image itself, I prototype something. This is main. I prototype something for that. Basically, what I do is that I read additional platform config file that you feed containerd with some additional information about features and compatibilities. I thought it would be wrong to extend etcd containerd config TOML because it's basically a config for the server, not for the client. From this, what I understood, and I can show you how such a config could look like. I hope it's big enough, or I can make it bigger.
So for me, it's good.
Be like that will be better. So under etc containerd, you would have basically two stuff: config, which is a standard containerd config that comes for the server, and matcher config, which is platform config. Yeah, that's the one I pointed. And here you can declare additional stuff on the containerd stuff like features or list of compatibilities. I'm not saying we have to implement platform features together with platform compatibilities. I was just prototyping stuff and exploring how we can do this. So I put both. and then it's very easy later to where is that the code for the no, this is, yeah, in the platforms. Basically, I extended the default matcher with this. Where is that? I extended basically with simple code that you check if features defined in the index match what you provide in the etc containerd platform config, and the same for the compatibilities. So it's a very simple extension. I think that containerd platforms repository is a way to go, because there you have the default configuration for matcher. So basically, this is the repository, containerd platforms, and as default, CTR client is using that. So that would be the way to go if we want to influence somehow image selection, the default one. I think that what I prototype we can use for discussion with Phil, Steve, and others to see what they think. But first, I wanted to hear if you have any comments to that. I'm not sure if you are familiar with containerd code. I was not. That's why I discovered this recently.
It's been a little bit since I've looked at this. I have worked in this, well, copy from this repo before. Not a straight copy, but I've used it as inspiration there. Is there anything in there that, well, did you attempt to do something that would go out and look at refers and the artifact spec and other stuff along those lines? Or did you just stay with what gets passed in the index?
Just passing the index. But right now, I plan to bring another prototype for the discussion by extending, where is that command? CTR, for instance, for images for pool. So I plan to extend CTR client right now with the artifact refers API, count how many calls we have there, to see if that makes sense to extend that or not. So yeah, that's on my list for this week.
Pretty sure they have something in here that is more than just a Boolean yes or no match. I need to go look for that again. Might be the compare.
Compare.
Yeah, because they do the platform vector.
Sorry,
and they do the ordering. And so is the ordered platform match. I think that's something in there. I get the feeling they might use that for some of their checks because they will let you match more than one version of a CPU. And so you get the different variants or whatever, the CPU, V1, V2, V3. And V1 is a match, but V3 is better if you have V3 support on your local system. So some of that is in there. I think all that is up in the compare.go file.
I see. So there's some stuff beyond the platform goals, right?
You had on the screen compare.go right under the README on the left-hand side.
Here. Okay. I see.
Yeah. So in here, they do more than just a simple Boolean yes or no match. They're kind of doing an ordered match to look through the entire vector of platforms, and they have some priorities in there to say, hey, if you match on a V3, you also match V1 and V2. But if we see a V3, we prefer that.
Okay. But still, I think we don't need to change that at all, because I was looking at those functions before, only and ordered. And under the hood, they are using the basic matcher, yes or no, that I extended with the compatibilities and features field. So my idea is that basically what we do right now, we keep this simple match, and we just extend that with compatibilities and features, because for that it's gonna be a simple yes or no, I think, right?
If you have an index and you have AMD V1 and V2, and you're a V2 system, you can run V1 code. So if V1 is listed first, you would match that and pick that one automatically. So you need this ordering to be able to go through and say, yeah, V1 was first, but I match better to V2.
Yeah.
And we're going to need that same logic in anything we do with the compatibility to say, not only do we match V2, but we match V2 with this other instruction set that's on the system. And also we've got the KVM that we want access to. So it's a better match for this later image that we define.
Okay, now I get your idea. Yeah, I need to check that because I was basically checking with simple algorithm. Okay, fine.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that's, they've got a few different functions in there, like the ordered and the any and the only list. And so I suspect that it is the ordered might be, if I'm just looking at this real quick, where they're doing that. And then, yeah, I need to go back through this. It's been a little bit since I looked at it. When I say a little bit, I'm talking like maybe a month.
Okay. Yeah, to be honest, I didn't check that very well, this compare go. I was basically, I saw platforms go, the match, the parse from the containerd command, and I saw that's the place. That's okay.
Yeah, when I started implementing some of the variant matching on my code, because they started adding the different AMD variants, I was digging through here. So it hadn't been that long since I looked through this, but I didn't follow this all the way into the containerd code to see how they call it. But pretty sure they need to do that, compare with that ordering in there to be able to prioritize.
Cool. Okay, fine. And then speaking of the artifact image selection, yeah, as I mentioned, either we extend CTR, but if containerd folks are not okay with that, and somebody has a use case to really do it, I would just recommend to use package client from containerd and implement your own client with your own platform matcher. Because
I think,
yeah,
I would think it would need to be in containerd itself, because CTR is just the client side, right?
yeah.
And I would think if someone says run this multi-platform index on containerd, that we would want containerd to pick the right entry out from that list.
But you need a client for that, right? If I understand correctly, because you have
the client would tell containerd to run the index.
But image selection, because containerd, the server itself doesn't take any part of image selection. Well, this is my understanding. Only the client chooses for you, which the clients are using platform matchers, and containerd server doesn't care about that at all.
That's interesting. I didn't know that about containerd because I always thought they did the match within containerd itself.
Okay, I need to double check that. This is at least my understanding when I was going through the repository, nerdctl, container runtime interfaces, and CTR and other clients.
So containerd does use containerd platforms. I have to go dig and see how they use it, but they've got the platform code directly in containerd.
Okay, platform code. I'm gonna check this as well then.
I'd need to do some digging to find out how. It used to be part of containerd. They worked it off a while back because I think a lot of people need that functionality, not just containerd.
So you're saying that in the platform, in the containerd itself, they are still manipulating or just considering the platform object from the index without any client, right? This is what you said. This is what I understand.
I believe so. I mean, you can access containerd without the CTR. You can have all the different CRI interfaces into Containerd. Docker will talk to it directly. So there's multiple avenues to talk to that Containerd socket than just that one command line.
Yeah, but all of them, I guess they will still use this platforms.
I don't know if that's done on the client side or if it's done on Containerd. I feel like Containerd has the ability to do that itself.
Okay. So I assume all of them, when they are working with the platforms, they are just relying on this. Maybe there are some platforms manipulation or whatever, but after all, for the image selection, Containerd is always using Containerd platforms for the algorithm which image to use also. But I will check.
Apparently, it's been a while since I fetched the Containerd repo. I've got a lot of commits to update right now.
And speaking of feeding Containerd, do you have any opinions how we should do that? I introduced this new configuration under etc Containerd, but I think it's the right way.
So I would make a fork of everything we need to do, and then just make sure we can spin up our implementation in the fork. And then once we think it's good and working, then we can go from there. There is, and I doubt anybody here other than myself is in that one, because it was done for a different working group. OCI Playground. Drop the link here and in the notes. We haven't touched it in a long while because this was what we spun up for the refers, but we can do the similar stuff for this one. More than likely, we can just use the exact same repo and just add some more maintainers over there. This was just a sandbox for us to throw a whole bunch of forks of our projects as we were working on working group implementations.
Oh,
and
cool.
so we were doing it. This was what we were doing. We were working on the refers stuff way back in the day. And so more than likely we can just archive a whole bunch of the stuff in here because this is all now been upstreamed or people have been working on other stuff with it or merged in upstream projects. And then we can start putting this stuff in there.
Okay, cool. So we basically can fork Containerd and other related stuff into this OCI Playground.
Yeah. It gives a good way if a bunch of us all need to see something in a common place instead of under one person's individual.
Okay, cool. So the outcome from this agenda item is that we basically still prototype the Containerd. I mean, I'm still working on that. So once, as you said, Brandon, we have something acceptable, then we can talk to Containerd guys. And in the meantime, we can continue with the design for the artifact.
What are we doing with the playground? Somebody say playground? Other slides?
Yeah. Basically, because I sorry, go ahead.
I dropped a link to it in the HackMD notes, but I was just pointing out when we were talking about making a Containerd implementation of some of the stuff we're proposing that we've got a little sandbox GitHub organization to put a whole bunch of different forks of projects as we're doing this.
So for working on prototype projects.
Yeah.
That must be the software engineers playground.
It was spun up. I think Josh spun up a while back when we were working on refers and we started having a whole bunch of implementations of ORS distribution, Reg client, all the different tools that needed to do refers. We put them all over there just so we could see them all working together. And so we can repurpose that one. It's just a dumping ground for us to run with forks for a working group.
Can I take this as an agenda item? Is that okay with you, Brandon? Can I assign you to this to take a look if we can archive all of these projects and give us permissions that we can fork some stuff and play with that?
I mean, archiving stuff is fun. I can do that right now.
Okay. just a quick recap for Vanessa. Basically, I was playing a little bit with containerd with the image selection, and I modified containerd platforms in a very easy way that you can influence containerd algorithm for the image selection purposes. So basically, I came up with this new config for containerd where you feed features and compatibilities. It doesn't say it has to be final. It's just for prototyping purposes. So I just wanted to see if it's possible to extend image selection in an easy way. And an answer is it is possible. It's just a matter of preparing something useful and showing this to containerd. Folks, that's why we are talking about this OCI playground.
Yeah. So when you do that, did you make a custom manifest, or did you get like up to the point where you would look at the manifest?
Basically, it was I modified the index itself. I extended the image spec. I forked the image spec, extended that a little bit, and modify one function basically in the containerd that allowed me to improve the image selection based on the index, but not based on the artifact. On the artifact, it's still
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know if the artifact's actually gonna be good for image selection after Brandon showed me that, or after Brandon and I talked through like what that actually means. That was very scary. But yeah, the manifest makes sense.
That's also why I was asking you the same question, Marcin, of whether you would try to do the full artifact.
Sometimes, Brandon, you just have to tell us like many times, possibly with links and pictures, and then we have like then we think we discover it for ourselves, but you've been telling us like 18 years. We'll figure it out eventually. Just don't give up on us.
Sometimes I just have to push you to write the code, and then when you're in the middle of writing the code,
and then you look at the code, you're like, oh my god. Actually, that's probably the best way I learn is through programming stuff, as opposed to kind of like someone telling me something's important.
But
somewhere in the middle, right? Like code is like, who on earth thought this was a good idea? Oh.
Oh no, it was me. That actually happened to me recently. I was like looking at this old code and I was like, who wrote this? Oh no.
So I'm still going to do this just for fun and see how many requests we have to make for, let's say, index of 30 images with their own artifacts. I didn't build a real artifact for this purpose yet. In the past, I built that was working, but for now, I don't have anything yet that is like working out of the box. I was testing my containerd implementation over unit tests. So yeah.
Oh yeah, that would be cool if we had like an implementation where we could kind of collect metrics about our different designs. Like this one took 300 different refers, links, and calls, and yeah, let's not do that.
Okay. So we have, I think, the last topic, which is plan to create the final design of an artifact approach. And I would propose that, because we are, I would say, very close to merge this proposal age. Once we do that, I will just open a Google Doc, write some proposal in there, and let everybody comment on that and see how we iterate over the meetings and over offline discussions on Slack and in the document. Is that okay with you, or do you have maybe better idea?
No, I think that's a great idea because it'll be more sort of organic and easy to work on than the PR process, which can be a little slow when you have a lot of people working on something, or more impossible.
I'm just waiting for this age to be merged. Then after that, we can start the design. I hope Brandon will not block that, the artifact.
I know what, Brandon, you're supposed to say. You say, I have no issues with it as a proposal, but I hope that does not block it from being merged. Like basically you're saying very nicely that you don't like something, but you don't want to be a bad person about it.
I think everything
and it's not just you, it's everyone.
I think everything deserves to be considered, as long as yeah, it shouldn't be one person saying no, this is going to be vetoed just because of one person. It needs to be considered by the whole group.
Yeah, but after all, you're TOB member, right? So you will be part of the voting. So it's better to have you on our side.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
was very active on the Thursday call, harassing all the other maintainers because there are no other maintainers on this meeting. I'm like, the whole concept of working group, we need to make sure we're doing it right because it shouldn't just be one maintainer showing up to this stuff and a small group of people going off in a direction without any other guidance from the rest of the organization. So I'm nudging them as actively as I can to be more participative in this process.
Thanks for that. That would be very helpful to get more people into that, especially maintainers.
For
Yeah,
those that don't
I'm
know,
giving a talk this weekend. Is it Saturday? Yeah, it's Saturday because it's in Barcelona. And I actually talked through some of our work and I made diagrams where we talked about Brandon. So that should be online. When it's online, I'll share it with a group. You can tell me how wrong I got everything. But I think it was important for me to kind of get the news out to the HPC community. Mostly that these are coming, they're not final, but that there will be a time in the future when we have them and we want people to kind of engage and use them.
Cool.
Nice.
But at least as a group, I think we are a little bit closer to have like at least this artifact design. That we finally work on the final design. Let's see how this is gonna go. But to be honest, I think I don't know. At least for the artifact, we explored so many options in there. I don't think we need another proposal or so. So let's see how this is gonna go.
Yeah, I guess the way I see the artifacts is like all of the designs are kind of the same. And the only difference is like, oh, this one has this kind of organization of labels and scoring and yeah. So I hope I'm also thinking it's not going to be too bad to come up with a final one.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have interesting discussion about labels because NFD has so many labels that cover so many stuff. And the question is right now, what do we do about that? Do we keep OCI labels and copy some of them from NFD, the structure or maybe the ideas, or we somehow use NFD stuff, which is at some point maybe invalid because this is NFD stuff, not OCI. Should we try to convince NFD guys to transfer everything under OCI? I mean, that would be crazy for them because for sure it would slow down their development and so on. And I don't think they would be like willing to do this.
I don't think they're like waiting on our work to use like the compatibility stuff anywhere. I think that OCI should be the maintainers of the core labels because there's no really guarantee that NFD doesn't change or go away or something, but kind of what OCI offers is the standardization, the organization, the promise that at least like as long as I don't know, the internet's around, like what will be around. So I don't think we should place responsibility on like a single community that's a specific project in Kubernetes to be maintaining labels for the entire container community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. Basically, I mean, there is some kind of level of trust for NFD right now because is it incubating project under CNCF or already graduated? I don't know, but a lot of people is using that, and there cover so many things. So I understand your point, Vanessa. I agree with that as well. That we should under OCI keep our own labels. Like if I understood you correctly, that we should keep our own OCI centric labels because we create the standard and everybody should follow, and maybe we should translate those labels to NFD and so on. But yeah, I'm just afraid of following NFD because let's assume NFD added some stuff and we realize it's required, then we just follow them and copy labels from them and so on. I'm not sure if it's a bad thing, but that would mean they'd create the standard, not us, or something like that, if that makes sense.
Well, I think if they come up with a label and we decide the underlying meaning of the label is important enough to warrant adding to this ecosystem, like we're not just like following them around like a little dog on a leash or something. Like it's still an explicit decision. Like, okay, this metadata attribute is important. Let's add it too. It's agreement as opposed to like blindly following, because they have a lot of labels and we're not going to use even close to all of them. So
yeah, that's correct. Okay. Anybody else has any topic that would like to discuss?
are there any other projects we're gonna be throwing into the playground and playing around with?
I thought about Containerd, Podman as well, because I would like to start discussion with Podman folks. For sure, image spec to extend the specification right now to prototype stuff. So I just see Containerd and Podman so far for the playground.
Okay, if we do like a if you want to do like a hackathon or something, not necessarily like this meeting time, but a hackathon, I would love to participate in.
Sure. Sounds good. We can agree that we can create pool. Maybe more people would be interested. Okay, guys. So thank you for joining. We have 2 actionable agenda items. First one is OCI Playground. So, sorry, Victor, go ahead.
I noticed in the other efforts on the hardware side, for example, there's a lot of effort to make like unified APIs, common APIs. If that becomes a reality, that resolve the problem here?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the first part where the API is being unified?
On the hardware side, right now the problem with the image is because of the variety of hardware, right? That's mostly the reason. But if there's a common API from hardware side, will that resolve the problem for this?
An API for what exactly?
Just okay, let me show you one example. There's a new group called let me see if I can find it. Just hang on, there's one group that formed not long ago. I can find it.
Is there another standards group? No, I'm just kidding.
No, standard group, not for container images, but basically the idea is all the hardware, regardless whether it's regardless of accelerator, they will be all going through the same API.
You mean the group has been formed under Kubernetes, the accelerator group, or something else?
No, this is something different.
Okay.
Yeah. So if that become a reality, does resolve the image problem?
Hardware is one story. We also are interested in the operating system aspect and kernel aspects. So,
oh, you said hardware.
Hardware, yeah.
I thought you said Harbor, the registry. Like, and I was like, what API? What are you talking? Okay, gotcha.
I would be interested to see this effort. I mean, what exactly they are doing, because if still they are, I mean, even if you have an API or some already existing stuff for hardware, how you can basically operate on that under different organizations, you still need somehow to describe this requirement for the image side.
I just shared the link. It's called unified acceleration.
Okay.
Isn't one API a Microsoft thing?
I only learned about today.
I could probably read this and answer all these questions, but do you know if this is relatively new or?
Yeah, this is quite new.
Okay.
So this is where things happens, I think. One API. This is the name, right?
This is part of it, yeah.
And it's only regarding the hardware. Okay, I'm gonna paste this as well in here. But
So
I
dumb
think
question, without one API, what are accelerators using? Just their own APIs?
I think so. Yes. So this basically I think solves different thing. Because as it says, one API is called language for programming accelerators and multiprocessors. So it's not about defining some labels as we are trying to do to unify requirements. Basically, it's for some interface for all accelerators, how you basically interact with them. This is my understanding, and after reading one sentence, so I need to read that carefully.
Even the problem faced by this group is because different devices, different libraries, that's the problem this is facing.
Well,
Not this.
I guess the way I think of it, if this is doing what I think it's doing, then it would provide a common API that we could actually get compatibility metadata for. So it would actually make our life a little bit easier, but I don't think this would conflict or anything like that.
Yeah, basically we try to describe, we come up with something unified enough to describe compatibility across different organizations for containers.
If let's say in the ideal world, there's only one device, physical device, one type, one library. Why there's still what make the container difference? Maybe just different.
If I'm not sure if I understand the question.
Let's say in this world, there's only one hardware provider, one processor.
Okay.
So everything and the library like it will be the same. So what will make the images different?
I mean, over compatibilities, we try to describe what kind of hardware images require. So we are not working on some APIs to interact with hardware or something like that, if I understand your question correctly. Basically, we try to, for the containers, come up with compatibilities for maybe specific hardware or multiple hardwares where the image can run without the problems. So the thing, as I can see in here, this one API specification, it's a different purpose. We just try to come up with common metadata, how to describe image requirements.
Yeah, the container images are being matched to the environment. The hardware is a part of the environment. The extent to which the environment can provide unified APIs for exposing its metadata, the easier it's going to be to generate that metadata for the containers to match to. But the containers in and of themselves are not going to be using the same API as a hardware would.
I sort of understand, I guess. Yeah, thank you.
I wonder if I'm misunderstanding it too, because I'm kind of feeling like I'm reading it similar to the way Victor is reading it, which is that if you write an application, you would write it against one API, and then there's only going to be one container image. There's not going to be a container image for NVIDIA, another one for AMD, another one for all the different, if you have multiple graphics drivers or if you had multiple, any hardware that you're talking to, you would just have one API you're writing against. And so you're going to only have one application you're building, one container you're building.
Right, but I read this as two different problems. I mean, for instance, if you have a container that interacts with GPU, and on the, let's say, low level, you just pass through the GPU into container itself, and it matters what kind of a GPU you have under the hood to appropriately interact with that over SDK provided by the vendor, if it's AMD or NVIDIA. So on the container requirement side, we just say that container requires this GPU from this vendor if there is a requirement for that. and this one API stuff, if they implement that, then okay, we can say. I mean, we can still say that container requires this GPU or other GPU based on different factors like performance criteria or something like that. So I
So
think
you
yeah.
might prefer to run the single image you have on a different hardware
Yes.
because it'll perform better,
Yeah, it could
but it
be
would
like,
only be one image you're building. And so it takes away half of our use cases.
That's a good thing. I mean, the
Yeah,
extent to
I'm
which
not-
fewer containers are more compatible is a good thing. But I do think
Yeah.
it's a separate, compatibility is a separate thing than the APIs that you use for a container to interact with the host.
yeah, but so to answer your question, Brandon, I mean, depends how you look at the compatibility stuff, right? Because for example, in telco, if you have a specific NIC, you have a specific acceptance criteria in there regarding the performance. So this is the discussion, as Bjorn pointed out, as we are more closed. We just want to have a specific list of compatible NICs instead of working on the opposite way, that assuming every container will work everywhere if the NIC provides a specific feature. So for instance, we have Intel NIC that performs well with this application, that we want to have it always, and this is going to be a requirement. Even if this is a single image across different NICs, that would work okay as well. But from the compatibility point of view, we consider this incompatible, the other NICs, because they don't perform as they should.
Yeah, we're getting into the node selection or the node provisioning, and we're saying that the image selection requirement is no longer an issue if we can do it this way.
Yeah.
The conclusion is
at least for me, one API is a different thing, and we still need to work on our own standard, how to allow people to describe container requirements. Even if you have one API for all vendors, you still have use cases where you should be very specific about the hardware you require. That's my point.
I think I understand now. So basically, images about, there are a lot of details about what the AR/ML process need. Is even if the interaction between Kubernetes and the hardware is it can be one API, but doesn't change the fact that there's a lot of different requirement for the AML.
Yes.
Image. Okay, got it. Thanks.
Okay. With that, I guess we can close the meeting.
Just on time. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. See you the next week. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.